Yeah, hello, good morning, everyone.
Hello, Mr. Joshua. Good morning. I'm waiting for them to join, so we'll start by 10:10.
All right, that's okay.
Recording in progress.
Hello, everyone. Good morning and welcome to another class on web design. So today we are going to be having integrating Bootstrap and Tailwind CSS, and this is going to be taught by Mr. Joshua Olosho. So, Mr. Joshua, are you ready?
All right, I'm ready. All right, good morning, everyone. Once again. So, in this class,
Yes,
hello,
you
can you
are.
hear me? Mm,
Okay, yes, sir.
Um, so, today's class is talking about integrating Bootstrap and Tailwind CSS. So, we want to look prior to this class now. We've been taught about how we can build websites, write the custom CSS, write the custom HTML, write all those structures and those bunch of code. We should be given all those lessons prior to time. So before we get into today's course, I'm going to talk a brief about myself. My name is Olosho Joshua Damilari. I'm a senior software developer here at McGeorge Consulting. Built so many custom-made sites for so many companies and there are so many applications. So I'm going to be talking from the angle of experience, professional web development. To come into the world of web development. What are the things that are the ethical things? Like, what are the things that is required of us to know? The basic things. When you go for job interview, there are some basic things that they are required you to know before yourself as a web developer and design. So in this class, without not much waste too much time, I'm going to move right into the course. So let me go to the course outline. So this is because actually this is what we are going to be looking at for today. So we are going to be looking at what are CSS frameworks? Why do we use framework instead of just writing pure CSS? We are still going to compare between Bootstrap and Tailwind, which is our core focus today. Then we are so we get into the proper discussion, which is discussing about the two framework we want to look at, which are the Bootstrap and the Tailwind. So we are going to look at the basics of the two of them. Then we are going to look at the similarities. So we are going to look at Bootstrap layout system, while in Tailwind we use utility-based system. Bootstrap has the components concept, while Tailwind has the core components. So we are going to look at all those things. We are still going to look at the Bootstrap utilities. We are going to look at the Bootstrap's forms and tables. On the Tailwind side, we are going to look at other plugins that we can use because Tailwind is a kind of expansive library. So it requires some plugins and setups to use. Then when we are done with that, we're going to go to the Q&A sections and we're going to look at bonus materials. Yeah, I want to believe that we can all hear me clearly. Yeah, I want to believe that we can all hear me clearly. So moving in that, so we're going to. Okay. All right, so we're going to go straight into the work then. All right, so what's a framework? Why do we use framework instead of just writing pure CSS? Now, if you look at your previous school, previous class that you have been on, you look like you just go into um, you go into your code, you write your HTML and CSS structures. Once you put your HTML and CSS structures, you start writing the style as you think fit. But now let's look at what plays out in the real world scenario. In the real world scenario, write code. For instance, if you are given a site to build and you are working with a team, you are working with a team members, a team of let's say 5 or more than that, you are working on an organization, you work more than that. So if you are working in a team member kind of system, you find out that I if there is no standard in what we are writing, if there is no standard in what we are writing, there will be confusions. There will be a lot of confusions in in, uh, in writing in controlling our code. For instance, I will give an example. For instance, if you have your code like this, you have your basic structure. I'm trying to project my, let me project my editor. So also, while we are waiting, please, this class is going to be a practical class, so uh, I will encourage everyone to come open their system and follow along. So once we get to the practical section, you should be able to follow along. So back to the class. So if you have your code like this, so let's say you have your code like this, and then you have more than 15 people working on this project now, for instance. Now, if you look 15 people are working on this project, I want to believe that we are following. Yeah, we have more than 15 people that are working on this project, for instance, now. And project can be so voluminous because this is just a simple project. So you have people working on this project now. So someone wants to, maybe for instance, someone wants to use, okay, for instance, now all these tags I use are standard tags, bodies, standard tags, header, standard tags, navigations, standard tags. Then I use me and footer, these are standard tags now. So for instance, if you are doing your direct HTML, for instance, and I want to create a div there, So if I create a div here now, I call this div um, let's play. Let's play. So if I come to here, I want to style this let's play now, and I write my custom class. If I come here to style this let's play now, I write my custom class. Okay, so I give it any name, maybe this is a group project now. This project is a group project. I just write anything like this. Okay. And I come to this my place now. I go to my style place where I'm styling and I declare the class. Okay. So I declared it, I said, so let's make it an external class. So I declare this, I say background color. I give you the background color of green now, for instance. 0, 0.0. Okay, so I give you the background color of green. Okay. So now, if you go to this page, if I come to this site to view it, so if I come to this site to view it now, you see that okay. So if I come to this site now to view it, so now if another person, maybe another developer wants to work on this site now, and if another developer wants to work on this site, for instance, you want to work on this site, and he loves the way I labeled this let play green now, and he wants to reuse this component now, right? You want to reuse this component of let play. That developer will find it difficult because you've given it a name. Look at the name you've given it here. So which does not make any sense with the person when he wants to use this component, because it is you that write it, only you that write it, that it makes sense to. So and that is one of the reasons why we are using frameworks. So the other thing that we want to also highlight in using framework is because of standard. I want to believe you are following this class. So the other reason why we use framework is because of standards. Okay, thank you. So the other reason why we use framework is because of standard. For instance, there are some if you remember in some of our classes, we discussed about readability of websites, making a website readable to external devices. Like there are some things that read websites, especially for those impaired, people outside there that want to read your website. There are some machines that enable them to read their websites. Favor, please, can you mute? Favor, please mute. Ade Dollar, please mute. All right. So there are some standard that is required for us to be able to read that site, for those machines to be able to read that site. So if you are writing your HTML, for instance, this way now, there is, for instance, maybe we want to make this important. So I want the content, so that's why I am giving it maybe color red, right? But some standard might not be that is red and is needed for that place to make it a color red. For them to know that that thing is important to read. No, just as our cultures differ, so also some things differ in some country and some organizations too. So if you are putting your home like this, it will make it more difficult for you to adjust the color or to meet up with the standard in which those organization wants to use. Okay, so these are the more reason why we need to use a framework to achieve what we want to do. So the other important thing is that you can't build everything yourself. Once you get into the coding now, you see the importance of frameworks. Especially those of us that are new, you see how frameworks makes things easier. For instance, now if you look at your button now, let's say how it take us to build a button from pure HTML, from pure HTML. So if you go to the source code now to build the custom, if you write the button now, let's say you want to do a button now, click, click, okay. So if you come to your site, you see your button, say click me. For you to style this thing, look at how many things, look at the volume of work you do now to style it. You have to, first of all, go to your code, you write the class. So you can call it anything. Button, click. Okay, so you go to your CSS now. So you want to give it a background color first, right? Let's give it a background color red. Okay. Let's give it the padding. Let's give it the padding of fence or thing. 10 pixels. Okay. What else again? Let's shift it below first. So let's do the margin. Margin top. Let's give it 20. Okay, so we get it. So let's say go. So if you refresh, you can see your button. So you can see some the first attribute of your button in PHP is adding the border by itself. You have to go and remove that border. So you go to your class again and remove the border. No. Please let's try to meet our mind. So once you come back, you refresh the border is gone. You see don't like the way it's appearing, maybe you want this edge to off, you still go back to the CSS and write all those sort of things. So there are border radius. So let's give it a border radius of 5. If you come back and you refresh again, you can see. So these are so now look at it now. For us to just achieve this button now. So now let's say that you are working for maybe you are working in multiple projects at once. You are doing multiple work at once, right? You want the same button, but you don't want this the back. That's where you want the button. You don't want it to be red. You want it to be maybe blue, for example. You want to retain all this property. You know the defaultly, what you will do is that you now come here, right? You come here. Is that two way things? Is that you come here, you copy this, and you call this one click me 2. Okay? So you go up and you go to you copy this again and you use this whole stuff. So there are several approaches to it, but let's just take it one by one. Why the theory of framework is it so that you can see. Okay, so now I call this one, give me 2. So you change this one to blue, now change this to blue, right? Okay, so you go back to your site. You can see that it retains the other property and it's blue. But look at the extra work you have to do. Okay, so the other thing you might say is that you might even break your CSS now, which is now you writing your own framework now. So you can also write your framework before we go to Bootstrap and Tailwind. You can write your own personal framework and reuse it. So let's see other things that we can do to even achieve this lesser without duplicating this code. And then, so the other thing you can do is that you can separate this code into two components. So there will be a button, a class for button, then there will be a class for the click me to have their color. Or better still, you can have it to be called BG red. That's background red. Since it's just red, so I can use them. So that will be BG red too. So this one will be what? BG blue. BG blue. Okay. So now this button, now you just need to maintain the property of button. So we don't need this again. So we remove this color away. Okay, so we leave this one as button. So this will retain the class button for both of it. But now we want to separate the color among them. So you can have write another class for uh, red now. So this will be BG background red. Okay. So then the other one can have the BG blue, right? So if you go back to your site now, you see that everything works fine. You can see everything works fine because now you have separated your distance. So if you want to have another button for green, you just need to copy this one and then you call this one green. So what you just need to do, if you leave this type without declining green, it will retain the property of the button, but it's not have color. So if you refresh, I can see it retains the property of the button without the color. So you now put the color, you have to go and declare that your BG green in the class. So you have to go and declare your BG green now. Oh, sorry. So can I see the BG green has come up? Okay. So now these are, if you look at it, this is how many minutes we use to achieve just 3 buttons. So these are time consuming when it comes to software development because all these things you can actually build your library for all these sort of time you use them. Since the time you take us rush down and be declaring one class from the other. If for instance, if maybe we are having several colors and I want to fill all this column with several colors, you know I have to go and be defining them one after the other to do that. And that is why we are looking at frameworks that can help us to achieve all these things with ease. Instead of us to be building all these things one after the others. Okay. So talk about grid system. You see how complex to achieve this system was when you are writing your own responsive designs. So with framework, it enables you to be able to have a good system built and then compatibility with browser. So sometimes when you build, for instance, look at this one I'm just doing now. If you look at this work we just did now, if we come to the mobile side of it, let's try to see the mobile side of it. If we come to look at the mobile view, so look at it. So we can see that, okay, you can see that if you look at this mobile view now, it's kind of responsive because I build it to be responsive, right? Because I build it to be responsive. So it's extra work for you to achieve this responsiveness. So if, for instance, I didn't make this, when I was doing it, I didn't consider responsibility of the site when I was building it. Now I have to now come again and doing the responsive design one after the other again. But with framework, most components that you want to use, we already consider most components you want to use, we already consider or it being mobile responsive. Then some of them also include JavaScript for use for interactions, for instance, form validations and the rest. So they also include it for you when you are using framework. Okay, so why do we use framework? Another reason of why we use framework as against using uh, the pure CSS. So we want to look at the contrast of it. You know, like I said, your framework you are using is also written in CSS. Everything is written with CSS, and that so it's like if you can even write your own framework. But because of, like I mentioned, standard and then code contributions, where if you are working in teams, for them to understand your code. You know, for instance, if you build your own custom CSS, you are still going to framework, you are still going to run into the problem of standardization for people to get to understand how to use your code. So, and that is why we use standard frameworks, which are in market. Okay. So now let's look at the other reasons why we use the framework instead of pure CSS. So if you look at it, we have that pure CSS will give you full control. That is quite alright. Like for instance, when I wanted to make the reporting this particular stuff, I have the control to make it. So look at when we start using this framework, we see all these things in place. If I want the button to have overflow and the rest, I will put it myself. Anything I want it to have, I will put it myself. So it gives you that control, but it is kind of consuming. It's going to take your time to achieve something. But if you look at framework now, framework is easy to use and it's predefined structure. So unlike that full control you have in your pure CSS, in in um, in using framework, you don't have that control of you having to define. So you have to use what is already in use. Okay, so what the other things? It is custom and it is lightweight. For those of us still joining us now, please, I said this class is practical class, so please let's ensure that with our systems, because we're going to write some code and we're going to test them out. All right, so please let's turn our system on in the next 15 minutes, in the next 10 to 15 minutes, we're done with this. We'll start writing the actual code. So please let's go on our system and let's turn our system on. I'm ready for live coding. So the other thing is that if you write your custom CSS, you won't put unnecessary load on it because you only write what you need and it doesn't consume space, but framework consumes space for you. But the other thing is that we can consider using CDN, which also solve that problem for us. Also, for beginners, you might find it time constrained because you have to write everything. But once you come to using framework now, you see that there are not so many things you need to write to achieve the certain goals of what you want to do. It makes it very, very easy for you to do what you want to do. Then, like I said, like this particular site I just tested out, you know, I have to consider it being responsive, and that is the reason why we had it to be responsive as against trying to write it ourselves using framework. Okay, so let's look at the two frameworks that are considering today, which is the Bootstrap and Tailwind. So the first question is, why are we having several frameworks? We have one on Bootstrap and Tailwind in the market. We have Material. We have there are so many frameworks in the market. But one of the major things I mentioned out is that standardizations and ease to use. So why do we choose one framework over the other? The number one thing why Bootstrap is popular is because it's one of the earliest framework. So most projects you see has been using Bootstrap before other ones spring up. And there's another one trying to improve on the shortcoming of Bootstrap. But Bootstrap has been invoked. So most projects that you are going to be seeing are using Bootstrap because Bootstrap has been the earliest form of framework before others came in. Then the other one is making way with this Tailwind. We have other bigger frameworks to tell. But I just decided to learn this tool today. So the major thing is the philosophy behind both of them. So Bootstrap deals with components. For instance, what I mean by components is if I want to style this button now, you go to my source code, you open the code, you go to code now. If I go to code, so if I go to my code now, you can see that I put all the work I'm doing, I put them in kind of a component like. So I have my header, my navigations, my mail, my footer. Then under my mail, I have div, I have this. These are what is regarded as components. So you can see that I put everything in component based something. So that's the same. People that design Bootstrap, that's the same mindset they have too when they were designing the Bootstrap. That every the use of their classes is going to be a component based use cases. So the beauty is such that the way you have a structure, that's the same way they structure their in the use of their uh, in the use of their library. So unlike Tailwind use utility first. What does utility first mean? For instance, for instance, if I have this structure now, and within this structure, right, I already have maybe in my design, right, I also want the button that is green, okay, but I want this color, I want the button that is also green that has this feature, but I don't want, for instance, on this side now, so let me explain it little bit. So, but I don't want this color to be green. I want this button to be green. I want everything to be like this. But I don't want this text to be black. I want it to be white, and I want it to be bigger. So in Bootstrap does not really have a direct solution for that. But unlike Tailwind has a solution for that. But let me try to achieve what Tailwind does. It's pure CSS before we start going to the framework. So what Tailwind does, if you look at it, maybe that's what I want. And commonly I can just come here and declare my style. And declare my style. And then say that I want this color to be white. So this is the solution that Tailwind solve. Okay? So I want it to be white and I want it to be bigger. And you see that I achieve what I want to do. But I actually tried to CSS myself. So you can see I want it bigger. Let me go back to the desktop mode. Alright. So I want it to be bigger. I want it to be bigger, which is bigger. I want it to be white, which is white. But I have to still write the CSS. Okay? I have to still write the class again. But what Bootstrap will do is that it will give you a class. So you can't really be given those adjustments of the class. But Tailwind has a kind of system that allows you to write this in utility based. Like you want to use it unlike component based solutions. So let me recap. What component is just talking about is that if I want to style this button now as a component, I will have to declare the class as something here. I will declare the class here. I will go to the class, my class folder and style it. That is the same way Bootstrap also works. If I want to call this thing green now, I have to call the class that is green. Those forms that I have declared. Just where I declare BG green now. So I have to go and call that class this component. But unlike that, in Tailwind, I can directly call the color to the. I can directly call the color. That's where I call it here. So what I did here like this is utility based. I declare my style here, I utilize it here. That's what that utility means. Unlike me trying to make it a component. For instance, now if I this component and this component has the same class. You can see, right? But I append this differently because I use a utility style to style it here. Also, for when you are using Tailwind, Tailwind provides this feature for you to declare another attribute on your component, unlike Bootstrap that has to do that. If you want to declare an attribute, you have to call a class for it. You don't necessarily need to call a class for it when you are talking about uh, Tailwind. You just need to give you what you want and you achieve it. Okay? So the other thing about it is that Bootstrap is easier for beginners to learn, but white Tailwind is very, very difficult. It's somehow difficult, but once you know it, it becomes interesting to use. Then, like I said, it also talk about what I said. It's limited to side bootstrap. Like I said, based on the explanation I gave on the component side of things. Tell me you can easily customize it. If you don't want a class to have that color, you can easily declare your own color within that class, and it's going to see it. Then it follows the default theme rules. So you look at it, that's so many websites where have the same structure. They're using bootstraps. They always have the same structure because of the way they are being um, done. Then responsively. So you see that Tailwind is built with mobile responsive in view, while Bootstrap is built to have a good point. To have a good point so that when you do your flexibles and build solutions. So those are the two constructive issues. So when you are choosing your library, you're able to choose very well what you want to use. Okay, so we're going to get started now. So before we get started, I want to open the floor for any questions. So is there any questions? If there's any question, you can drop it in the chat. Okay, so I believe that there is no question. So please let's turn on our code editor on the setup for Bootstrap. So we are going to get started with Bootstrap. So getting started with Bootstrap. Okay, so for the sake of this class, we are going to be using a CDN for our Bootstrap, but you can also see download it. So we're going to get started with Bootstrap. Alright, so let's open up our code editor. Let's open a code file. Let's open our code file. Okay. So, so we're going to open our own code file. So let's put more file here. So CSS style sheet.css. So let me move my style down folder. So I'm moving on my style to this style sheet. Okay. Okay, so I want to import bootstraps. It's just the normal way we've been taught how to link files. And the rest, so there is what is called CDN. So what CDN does is that it's a pre-hosted file already. So it has hosted all these site sheets for us. So if you look at our project now, I imported the bootstraps. So I imported the Bootstrap into the project. So the next thing I want to import is the JavaScript, but Bootstrap work in line with jQuery, so we have to also import jQuery too. So I imported the JavaScript. So let's do the JavaScript there. Okay. So we are going to import jQuery later. So let's look at this structure now. So I'm going to drop this code on the group so that we can also run it in our system and work together. I want us to do some comparison first. So let me say overall, yes, all right. Okay, so I'm dropping this code snippet for us on the chat. Seems there's a limit of what I can drop on the chat. Uh, there's a limit of what I can drop on the chat. So what I will do is I'm going to use a repo. Since that is even our next class, how to use it. So let's learn the repo. So you should be able to see the code on that link. So I also drop it on YouTube. So I've also dropped the link on YouTube. So let's try to open that link. Yeah. So let's try to open that link. So if you open the link, you're able to see have access to the code that I'm currently writing. So for next week, we are looking at how to work on with control version. So let's try to. Okay. Please let's confirm if we have been able to have access to the link. I just drop a message on the group that access to the link I dropped just now. So let me move into the rep. Let's meet our mic. Let's meet our mic. We are not talking. Okay, so you should be able to have access to the code now. So please, once you open the site, you see the code, so you can either pull it or you can download it. The next week, we are going to look at it. So let's continue with the class. I want to believe that you are. So let's look at the code structure now. So let's look at this code now. So we call a library, which is Bootstrap. This library, if you look at it, we call it from a CDN server. So after we call it, we're able to have access to all this like class library now. So you can see we have that, you can see everything that we have. So let's go to the site and look at how our code is used as compared to our previous projects, which is this. So let's look at how it looks like now using Bootstrap. You can see our project now using Bootstrap. Then look at our previous projects using pure HTML. So look at the one that we write using Bootstrap. You see that we didn't have to be declaring all these classes. We didn't have to be writing all this stuff. We just call it. You can see, right? We just call it into the project. So for instance, if you go back, if you come to my site now, if I want this to be not white, I want to give it a yellow color, calling. All I will just, you can see this text white. You know, the name of the class, I will just change to go on it. So if I come back to my site, you can see it's not yellow now. So unlike the one that we are coming from, I think it's from the one we are coming for, we have to, the number one thing we do is that we declare it, we write the class, then we now go to our structure and we write that script for it. I'll write that CSS script for it. Can we see the magic? If you are following, you will have seen the magic now. So now let's now go deep into how to understand how to use bootstraps. You know, for instance, you need to understand how which one is going to make it here. You need to know which one is going to make this particular color. You need to understand how this is going to do all that stuff. So how do we understand how to do all that? That is what we want to look at in the next 18 minutes. Okay, I want to believe that we are following the class. So how do we understand how to do all these things? So the key factor is documentations. So as a developer, you cannot run away from reading documentations. And that is why whether you are studying anything, you still be English. Because that's English, there's no way you want to communicate what you are doing. Okay, so let's go to Bootstrap to get started with Bootstrap. Get Bootstrap. So this is Bootstrap official documentation. Let's go to. So this is Bootstrap official documentation, where you don't need to consume much of your time reading everything. But this is how to. So if you open your site, and it will show you how to install it. This CDN, all those. To be able to get it working. Okay, so now let's look at how we want to understand. So let's start with text. So for instance, if I want to change this color or anything, thank God to the advent of charts. I also use charts to get what we want to check. But before chat came in, we are always using this documentation to do anything we want to do. Okay, so now the way to understand how to do things is that the way to learn faster is to learn on the job. So, for instance, my company has given me a project and tells me that okay, rebrand this to fit our company. And for instance, our company is they are using green, yellow, what kind of color combinations. But currently, this site is not sticking to what our company is looking like. So, what should I do to make this site look like what my company wants? Okay. So, if I come to Bootstrap, I want to start uh, with my home page. So, let me go to my style sheet and create a file called home page. Home page dot html. Okay. So now the first thing I want to do on my home page, number one, when you go to your website, is navigation bar. So what you just need to do is to go to your Bootstrap documentations and then search for navigation bar. Navigation. So you can see that it has given you all the available navigation startup that you can use. Okay, so you can see. So you see how all of them looks like. Alright, so you can see. So you can see all our navigation by type. So if you like this one, it will give you all the picture before you even download it. So let's just scroll down. Let's look at and you can see this one now. So now by the items, so you can see inputs, search bar on top. So we still go up, but I want to understand how all these things work. So you can see all of them. So let's use the one that has the one with search button on top of it. So which is this? So all you need to do is to first of all, before you start copying, because these are snippets, you can see this admin now, there's no structure. So you need to go and structure your code first. So to know we started just copy this structure from here. So you can close. Okay. So let's structure this structure first. So let's copy our script, our Bootstrap script too. Okay. So now let's go to the CPN documentation bar. So once you copy this navigation bar, let's copy it. And let's put it here inside our body. And paste. Alright, so we go to our site now. So let's go to our site. So you open our site now, you can see that everything is coming as it has been described. But you notice that this is now a function of you working as a UX person. That this space is kind of going over the bar, so you can add a class to the body so as to make it centralized, so as to give that body. Um, okay. So we can see that it's no longer extending. So you don't want that. You can use a kind of what we define. Want it to just space. So we can come here and give it a padding. So you write your class here, then you go to your class sheet and define the class. Okay, but Bootstrap already has. Okay, so to just give it a padding, just simple. Padding start with P. So they pick P as the class. How much padding we want to give it? So we have one with 5. So let's give it 5. So you come back to your code now. You see that you can see the padding now. So you get this padding like this and up to. But we don't want this up padding. We only want the side padding. So we have what is called MX and MY. MX, you are coming from your mathematics background, you know what X and Y means. You know what X and Y axis means. So you can see that what we are doing in school is important in life. So that's where the X is from. Y and X. So what you just do is that you just add your X here. You go back to your code to the view of your style sheet. You see that it has only given it these two sides and then the upper part. So if you want to do for upper part, you use your Y, which is your Y axis. So that's how it works. So we have been successfully able to do our navigation bar. So now you just need to change the text on the navigation bar to suit what the company wants. I want to change this background color to suit the company. Like I said, our company is using green. So we want to use green for this background, and then we want to use white for the text. So all you need to do is to come to. So that's what you can do. All you need to do is to come to. Is to first of all look for the class controlling the column. So basically, what we control the column is this navigation bar. So there are so many things you can do, but since you are looking Bootstrap framework, let's not try to write any code here. Let's just use what is being given. So what you will do is that just go back to your Bootstrap and search for background color. That is background. So you can select the first one. So if you see, you can see how. Okay, so you can see how it's describing the. So what we use green. So can you see what the correct green as BS success, BS success. You can see text. So let's use so let's use the we want to use the BS. Okay, so the version. Okay, so we come back to your code now. Onto the version So most times these are the things that we have constraint over. So sometimes when this does not work, you have to write the tests. But let's follow for what is contained in the class by doing inspecting. So you must know how to use the developer uh, framework, you must know how to use the developer tool. So to use developer tool, you go to the section where you are working and you right click on it, then you click on inspect. So once you inspect, you go to, so this is the so this is where we are looking at what's the beginning color. So you can see where it's defining the color. Tertiary. So why our color is not coming? Because this is already labeled important, as you can see. So if I check business here at the beginning income. So how do we come over all these constraints? So that's why you must still know how to use your normal style sheet too. But now in the CD, on the CDN, they've already described this class as being okay, as being important. Okay. So it's either you also write another one to be important or you remove it. So this is BG body tertiary, so you can actually to BG body success. Okay, so you come back to your code now and you refresh. What's this here? Comes down. So when you are working with CDN, you know, when I look at the contract before now, we see all these challenges then coming. So what I said there was that Bootstrap will give you so many things that you don't need. So I don't want people learning how to remove it. So for instance, we have that busy body tertiary, which we don't need. So we have to remove it and put the one we need, and now it comes alive to begin with. So the next thing now is to make this thing white. If you're going to be using CDN, if you're going to be using framework, your developer tools must be your friend. How to use developer tools. The property is making it black first. You have to locate what is making it black. So you can see what is making it black is navbar branch. That is what's making it to be black, bottom black. Navbar branch. So, but this navbar branch also has other properties. One like the one that we did earlier that we removed before it works. This one does not have notice. There is no importance on this one. So, mean that we can use a style. So, we can go back to our bootstrap and look at text. So, what is text? We want to use white text. So, what is text white? So, there's white text. Text. Yes, text. Text color. So, you can see text color. So there is text white if you look at it. Or we can just use our chat. Chat can give us faster response than that. In case you are not able to understand the documentation. So you go to this branch. You go to this branch. So if you refresh. I want to show you. So the other thing you can do is to write your custom CSS and inherit that class. So let's check the custom CSS and inherit that navbar. Just change only the color and make it important. So what it does is copy the same class. So I want to create a custom CSS. So copy that class. And then we make the color white. Then you need to add this important so that you see it as very important, as a very important, as a very important attribute than any other thing before it can be any other thing. So let's call in the class that will just declare. So come back to, so you can see it. Now let's look at for the home, how to make the home white too. So if you look at the home, we have 9 by 10, 9 by 10. So that's what is containing it. So let's copy 9 by 10. And let's go to our style and hide it there. So it's actually not on our item, it's actually on A. So let's add A attributes. So I believe all these things was taught in previous class, how we are writing these things. So we are able to make it white. So now we want to complete our website. So let's make our website have the right contents. So we have home, we have home, so after home, we have about. Then after about, we have our services. We will offer our services, we offer care job, we offer delivery services. What again? So external thing, we offer tutorials too. Okay. So let's see. Then let's go our contact page. Contact us. Okay, so let's search any site. So as you can see, everything comes. So we need to, because we have made this in white and we can't see again, so that also we need to maybe return this one back to black. So how do we do that? You just inspect again. So we notice that the class is a drop down item A. So what you do is that you come to your style sheet as custom. So you need to make this one black, follow. And key important there. So if you go back to your listing now, so let's see the structure. So understand the structure. Let's understand the structure of the code so that I'm able to target it rightly. Okay. Alright, so please let's try to replicate what I'm doing on your end. So let me go over it a bit so check the, you can check the repo I sent to you on the group to check the code. But first try it on your own. Let me go over so I can try everything I've been doing so far on your own. Alright, please, how many of us trying it on our own? If you are trying it on your own, please just put it in the chat. If you are writing the code on your own, please just drop a message in the chat. But I'm trying it. Hello, is anybody trying it?
No. Ana seco. Buona seco.
So we've been able to successfully design the navigation bar for our website. Alright, so now we want to look at how we can now put more content on our site to be able to finish the design using the bootstraps that we have learned. Okay, so if you come down to our structure bar in bootstraps, you know a simple website have a page that has a banner and the rest. You want to put the company banner on the site and then write some write-ups on the site. So easily we can just go into our HTML and CSS for that. You know what Bootstrap does for us is to style it easy. So let me bring that. So let's write a few sections under our navigation bar that we have now, so we can see what more we can add to this our site. So all the code I'm using, I'm going to commit them to repo, so we're able to see how to use it. So first of all, uh, I will want to write the structure for the hero section for the site. So let me just clear that and explain. So after our navigation bar is needed, we want to have the body where we where we showcase what we do. So look at our body. So look at the body of our. So let's wrap all our body in a particular section. So let's call that thing main. So after navigation bar, we have this is our body. Okay. So we have the hero section here. which has three sections. These are custom CSS. We use Bootstrap primary. This is a Bootstrap class. So we define our own class too because we want to achieve some certain things here. Then this way we define it, define it. So the other place we use Bootstrap here, this is Bootstrap that we use here. This is button because we don't want to replicate buttons, so we use Bootstrap buttons for that. So let's write CSS for it. So let's not just custom CSS to define. Let's see how we write the CSS for this. So this is my CSS. So you can see my CSS where I describe everything. The hero sections, the overlay, the classes animations, the other thing. So if you go to the site now, you see that our site has had a new look. So our image is not coming. So let's look for an image online. So let's look for an image online. So let's use let's use a very nice image. So let's use image. This is, you are not talking, this is make it yourself. So let's go to our style and pick this image. So come back to our site and refresh. Let's go there, let's inspect. Let's try to download it. Image and put it in our folder. So you should have the image, then you put the image in your folder. In the same folder as where you have all your code. So look at our code now. I have the image here. Sure, so let me just call the image and click on it. So let us start the image directly. So you can see our image is now looking. So you can see that that image site is not going to look very fine. So the image site is very, very interesting. Still is coming out. So welcome to the website. Discover the amazing content, connect with great people, and explore new opportunities. So you can see our site coming out. So you can see the overlay. So let's look at how this is being built. And with the help of what Bootstrap helps us to also do in this site. So if you look at the, okay. So now what does that thing that Bootstrap did for us here? So Bootstrap helps us to style this button. If you look at the CSS, write less CSS. See how many things this 33 lines. This is about 73 lines of CSS. Can we see 73 lines of CSS? See how many things we did with 79 lines of CSS when we are writing CSS. These are what we did with 73 lines. And what is here? Just you can see, don't have many components as compared to this one now.
I don't want to write all this CSS. What we use to achieve this, we are writing up to 500 lines of CSS or 200 lines of CSS right now. But we are able as against 200 lines of code to achieve what we have achieved. To achieve what we only achieved of CSS, to achieve what we want to achieve on the style sheet, as against writing everything. Okay. So now let's look at the structure of the code. We have our structure like this, where we have the section where we define the section, you define the layout. If you observe the site, it has one that kind of image. So that's where we define. We have our display, we have our foreground and the rest. Then we have our. So yeah, if you look at it, this primary BTN and BTN primary, we come to list our style. In that particular property from Bootstrap. So which one? So let's look at grid system. How Bootstrap helps us to do grid system. So let's look at how Bootstrap helps us to achieve grid system. So let's bring the structure. So unlike before now, we taught grid system in previous class. Grid system using our normal style sheets. But now let's look at how Bootstrap helps us to limit our code, and we can still come up with a very, very good grid system. So still inside our main, I want to go down to another section, which is this section. And so if you look at this section, we have our grid system defined. We have our grid system defined. Most line of CSS in this one. So everything we are using in this grid system is coming from Bootstrap. We use pure Bootstrap for everything of this grid system that we are currently using. So you see, we have container coming from Bootstrap. We have our padding coming from Bootstrap, our text to centralize it. So let's look at the out result for this particular design. So if you come down, like I can see, we have the out results. How we able to align this into boxes and it's fitting. Picture is not coming. So we have the missing code that are being. Okay. Let's do the picture out. So let's focus on what we are doing. So the grid system. So previously if you want to write this grid system, you have to write several lines of code to achieve this. But now we don't even write any style. Look at our style, our custom file. There was no style waiting for us to achieve this. So it was pure Bootstrap. So Bootstrap was to build the container, was to build the text center. So this will help us to achieve our grid system. So what this does is that on small screen let it be 2, on larger screen let it be 4. That's what this is. So it's divided into 12. This particular is divided into 12. So we have our screen divided into 12 pixels, 12. So if you divide 12 divided by 3, you have 4. If you divide 12 divided by 6, you have 2. So if I go to mobile of this, so this is what we are talking about, the responsiveness of all this. So if I go to the mobile of this particular page now, if I go to mobile view, so let me open the mobile view. So let's look at, you can see the mobile view is quite responsive. I don't use other site.
So we have not split this into one column. So when you come to dragging this now, you see how it's expanding. Then once it reaches a point, it breaks into two. And we see it. Then once it now expands fully, it now break back uh, into the full of it. So you can see that it is much more responsive than we trying to build um, everything ourselves. Okay, so that's the how we use each system on Bootstrap. So all these things you can easily find them on their documentation. You just type it on the documentation, which system, and it brings some example for you. So which you can just use. So once it brings some example for you, you use those examples that it brought for you. Or you can just go to Google and just ask chat to help you to do it. Okay, so you can just ask chat to help you to do it. Okay, so you can see it here already. It's already giving you container role, all this. So to explain everything to you in details how it works for the root system. Okay. So yeah, I think we have touched. Okay, so we touched layout, basic section. So let's look at forms and tables of bootstraps. So let's look at forms first. So to do form, we go to so let's use the search options. Just pick a form. So let's do the form. Forms. So once you come to form, you see example of forms there. So you give you first name, last name. You can say first name. So you give it different type of forms. You can see. Sign give you a comprehensive forms. Then sign in, give you inputs. So let's try to use this snippet to achieve for the contact section. So we go to our source code. All you just need, all I before that you have to write everything, When it comes to professional development, we are not expected to write everything, I expect to be fast and deploy faster. So I started using code snippets from diverse ways to achieve your purpose of the so that will make you to be able to deploy professionally and faster. Nobody is telling you to go and sit down and be writing all this code one after the other. There's no organization that has that time to wait for you to be writing all this code. So what they expect from you is that you already have it. Just give us, let's use our move on. That's what they want from you. So you must know how to query this. If you are going with if you are going with Bootstrap, you must know how to query this Bootstrap documentation and know what you want, or you can use charts to get some of what is element out. So once you did that, just need to go and check your so you can see our code forms fine, but we don't like when there is no margin. So we need to put in a kind of section so have it as a margin. So let's add the margin to it. So we can just quickly copy this one. So since we are using the same property, we can reduce the property.
on this thing. So once you come back here and we refresh, so you can see the magic that's giving it that spacing. So what else we need is to give it a title, which is contact us. So you can, so that way it's going to reuse. When you hear the word reuse, your code must be reusable. Features of your code must be reusable, so you can use them in some sections. Okay. So once you refresh, you can see that it's coming alive. So you can see. Okay. Is there any questions so far before we move to the last section of today's class? Is there any questions? Okay. All right. So the last class, so this class is writing table from the CDN. So you can see CDN, data table, and the rest. So we also need to call jQuery because we use jQuery for the CDN. So we use jQuery for the JavaScript part of the project. So let's call jQuery. We also need to initialize the table too. So let me call those things that we need here. Let me just close this. So we need to, you can see I call jQuery for JavaScript part of how the data table works. Then I call the normal, I call the Bootstrap JavaScript. Then I call the data table. Then I call the Bootstrap data table too. So we are using two components from jQuery and Bootstrap to achieve this data table. So let me bring in the table part of the components. So if you see that our components we are not really using CSS for most of what these things we are doing, and just calling it from the CDN. So let's add it in section. Okay. So let's call the previous usable component we used. So let's call the usable component we usually use that class that we usually use to push uh, to have a nice and so let's give it a heading too. The heading. So now let's call our table data now. Okay. So let's call it okay. I think this already comes in with its own value. So let us change this to section. Okay. So if you come back to the page now, look at how so you can see